Hello, this is Parth Rosa from LG Institute of Engineering and Technology. I'm here to cover your subject, that is earthquake engineering, and I'll be taking two modules of it. We'll be starting with module number 5 of your syllabus, that will be special topics, and then after completion of it we'll be moving towards module number 2, that will be fundamentals of earthquake vibrations on buildings. So starting with our module number 5, that is special topics. Now why they are called special topics? Because in current industry or in the current modernization era, these are the terms or the terminologies that are predominant in the earthquake industries. So whenever you talk about earthquake resistance building, as per the new technology and as per the new modernized era, these are the topics that you must be knowing in order to deal with the earthquake resistant structures, whether it will be in the RCC structure, that is reinforced concrete structures, or whether you will be dealing with a masonry structure that are called unreinforced structures. In both the cases there are some vital things or some special topics that we have to deal with, and we will be covering that in this module. The first thing that we'll be starting with is liquefaction. Now most of you might be knowing with the term that is soil liquefaction. Now how does soil liquefaction affects the ground and the buildings corresponding to the earthquake portion? We will be seeing this in this lecture. So moving forward, first what it means by liquefaction. So to describe liquefaction, we first need to understand two major topics. That are, the first topic that we need to understand here is this saturated soil. Now as we all know in the subject that is geology, saturated soil, that means it is 100% filled with water. That is, there are no special voids mentioned in it or no special voids remaining in it. 100% is filled up with water. So there are no voids, all the voids are being filled up with water. That type of soil is called as saturated soil. So this is the example of a saturated soil, as you can see here. Next we need to remember or need to recall our memories is the pore water pressure. Now what is pore water pressure? So as you can see here, there is a grain of particles, or you can say soil particles, being shown here, and the voids are filled up with the pore water. Now if this pore water increases, and as you all know that water pressure is much higher as compared to the density of soil, so what will happen is the pressure will be generated in the water will be much more higher than what it can resist, and that will generate a pore water pressure in the upward direction. So these are the two major criteria that you need to remember while understanding the term that is liquefaction of soil. So now let us take an example of how does it works. So we will be looking at the video firstly, then we'll be discussing it in later. So if you can see here that soil particles, or you can say grains, are vibrating due to the earthquake motion, and as they have been vibrated, the voids are being created in numbers. That means the granular particles try to destabilize themselves, and thereby the voids that will be created will be filled up with water due to the presence of groundwater table below it. Clear? So how will it affect the ground surface, or you can say the buildings on above it? So this was the first case, that the soil grains is in excited state and saturated soil deposits have been there. Now due to the contact force, this contact force is due to the earthquake force. So the force created by the interaction of soil grains. So as the soil grains are now not in equilibrium position, you can say the stable position, they will transfer forces to one another, and as they transfer forces to one another, they will be moving towards a dynamic form. Clear? And after the generation of this dynamic force, what will happen is that the elevated water pressure will be created by this additional loading between the grain particles, and that term is called float. So as you can see in the blue part, this blue part is the water pressure. So when the soil was stabilized, there was no water pressure in it. Now when the ground shakes or earthquake occurs, the granular particles will be colliding with each other, and thereby the forces or the contact forces will be shared by each and every grain particle. That will start to increase the water pressure, and after a certain period of time, this water pressure will be going up to maximum level. So as we all know that pressure or force can neither be created nor be destroyed, but can be converted from one form to another. So this water pressure will try to break the layer of the ground surface and then will be coming out of the ground surface. So that part is called as liquefaction. So we'll be seeing that in the later portion. So first again, so now let us take an example of the actual phenomenon that happened in San Francisco during 1906. So three factors that were required for liquefaction to occur are: first, the soil should be loose or granular sediment for liquefaction to occur. Second is water saturated sediment, as we all talked about that the saturation part is very important if we are dealing with the liquefaction part. And the third is strong shaking, that is ground shaking, or you can say the presence of earthquake. So what happened during that time we'll be seeing with the video. So as you can see here, that if we look upon the surface or you below the surface, this layer is the loose granulated sediment layer, and what will happen is that it is saturated by groundwater. The groundwater table was below the surface, so it is saturated by groundwater. Then the load in the form of earthquake came. What happened is that the soil got liquefied and it erupted in the form of volcano, and then the soil below the surface of the ground erupted to the surface of the earth. So this process is known as liquefaction. This is the actual photo of the earthquake that was occurred in San Francisco in 1906, and the area is underlain by marshy deposits that were covered by artificial fill in the year 1800s. What was that? It was already a marshy land, and that marshy land was covered up with artificial fill. That fill was not properly compacted, and that caused the soil to be liquefied during this earthquake that came across in 1906. So why this happened? Because there were two major reasons. Earthquake waves caused the water pressure to increase in the sediment. As we have shown in the last slide, that due to the shaking of particles, the water pressure obviously increases in the granular parts, and the sand grains lose contact with each other, leading to the loss of sediment strength. Means the shear strength of the soil or the granular particles loses, and that eases out the water pressure to come out of the groundwater surface. Yeah? And the soil thereby behaves like a liquid material. So this behavior of soil in the form of a liquid behavior is called a soil liquefaction. So moving further, we can see here that it is an example of soil liquefaction. That due to soil liquefaction, the picture shows that overturned apartment building in Niigata, Japan, due to liquefaction in the year 1964. So this type of failure can occur due to the liquefaction of soil. Next, if we look upon, there is another example that we can see upon. It is in Olympia, Washington in the year 2001. If liquefaction occurs beneath a surface, not on the surface, that has hardened as a result of compaction, weathering or some other process, sand boiling can occur. So this is the phenomenon due to sand boiling. Now what is sand boiling? We will be seeing further in the form of a video. So we'll be looking upon with an example that what is our sand boils. So if we look at the video here, if we cut a line here, then silts and clay layers are mentioned in this layer. So if the ground settles due to the earthquake, then the water pressure below the surface increases, and thereby the soil, or you can say the wet sand present here, erupts in the form of a volcano. And this is the actual photograph of what happened in Loma Prieta, California during the 1989 earthquake. So this type of some destruction occurred, and this is called a soil bow, or you can say sand boils. Clear? So sand boils is basically a volcano that is of sand. Generally we know that volcano is due to magma or lava, but in this, due to the water pressure below the surface, the sand or the wet sand erupts in the form of a volcanic eruption, causing the destruction on the ground surface, thereby defertilizing the entire land and thereby causing major havocs too. So this is the actual photograph of that happened in the Loma Prieta in California region in US. So next, moving across, what affects whether or not soil liquefaction will occur. I mean, what you can say that soil liquefaction will occur or not? How we can say that? So there are basically various reasons for it. If we go into detail, we can say that generally liquefaction will occur in loose, clean to silty sands. These are the red highlighted things that you need to remember for your examination, that are below the groundwater table. So when the clean or silty sands are below the groundwater table but still close to the surface of deposit, then there is a chances of soil liquefaction to be occurring at that place. Second, liquefaction can also occur in soil that is completely submerged and commonly causes significant damage to bridge foundation. So whenever the soil is completely submerged in water, then also there is a very high possibility of soil liquefaction to occur. Or you can say that prior to an earthquake, the water pressure is relatively low. And the last point is that earthquake shaking can cause the water pressure to increase to the point where soil particles can readily move with respect to each other. So these are the criteria whether soil liquefaction will occur or not. Now moving across, we can take another live example of the liquefaction process. In Lake Merced, California in the year 1957, liquefaction can occur easily on river banks as well as near large bodies of water. So this is the example of near river bend, that how liquefaction affects not only on the ground surface but also on the river banks too. Then in liquefaction occurrence in 1976 in Guatemala on the Montag River, here you can see that again near the river bank liquefaction took place. So now we'll begin looking upon why actual liquefaction is important. Liquefaction is responsible for the extreme property damage and losses of life. As we all know, the liquefaction causes the entire building to collapse. Thereby, there is a high risk of loss of life in that case. So the study of liquefaction or the soil liquefaction is very important while designing any building. Now, liquefied ground is no longer stable to withstand the stresses it is subjected to from structural foundations or even its own weight, leading to variety of potential failures. So if a structure is built on a ground that can be liquefied, then during the entire design life of the structure, it can be possible that if the design span of the building is 25 years, then it will not last up to 25 years and it will fail priorly due to this liquefaction due to various other effects such as crackings or settlements or everything else. Third, the building structures will lean or fall or at times even split open under the strains. As the ground settles at an unprecedented manner, or you can say not in timely manner, the settlement ratio is uneven. And due to this uneven settlement ratio, it can either lean, fall, or you can say it can split into half to entire building. Clear? So these are the various criteria why the study of liquefaction is important. Now moving forward, this is an upper deck collapse of Bay Bridge in San Francisco, California, 1989. Again due to soil liquefaction. Here you can see that the upper deck collapses due to the settlement near or settlement under this pillar. Here the tension or you can say stresses produced during the liquefaction can cause tension cracks to form in the soil near the embankment. This took place in Olympia, Washington again in 2001, and as you can see here, entire portion of highway is collapsed due to this soil liquefaction. Now, how to reduce this liquefaction? So there are various methods to reduce liquefaction. The first one is avoid liquefaction susceptible soil. Means if we priorly know that this soil is susceptible to liquefaction, then there won't be any multi-story building built on it, or we should take care that there should not be any high-rise building to be constructed on that part of soil. Next, shallow foundation aspects. So whenever you see that soil is liquefied or tends to liquefy in that region, then also always cast or always design shallow foundation aspects. For example, a residential building or a bungalow, etc., which has a strong foundation, or you can say raft or a mat foundation beneath it. So this could avoid the liquefaction effects on the upper structure, or you can say the superstructure of the building. Next, if the deep foundation aspect is considered, then we must provide caissons and piers below it So you can see that this portion, this layer is the liquefied layer, this is the fill, and this is the stiff, or you can say hard strata. So our peers or cations should always go deep to the stiff layer, whether it is intermediately to the liquefied layer or not. It must has its roots to the stiff layer part. Then vibrocompaction. This is the most used phenomenon while constructing a building, or you can say constructing complexes on the liquefied soil. So what does it do? This machine here drills a hole in the soil, and then it is been filled up with the soil, or with, you can say that, filled up with the extra amount of soil. So here by filling process has been done, and the soil is compacted to have a greater strength than the actual construction that was happening. So this process is known as vibrocompaction. Then dynamic compaction can also be used. Densification by dynamic compaction is performed by dropping a heavy weight of steel or concrete in a grid pattern. As you can see, various grids are being formed. These are to be dropped at a height of 30 to 100 feet. So as you can see here, heavy object is being dropped with the help of a crane, and this type of compaction is known as dynamic compaction. Lastly, compaction grouting can be used to densify the soil and to convert it from liquefied soil to the non-liquefaction. So compaction grouting is a technique whereby a sand flowing, either water, either sand or cement mix, is injected into loose sand under high pressure. So as you can see here, a drill is being done in the ground layer. Then with the help of a pump, either water, either sand or cement, depending upon the ground strata, it is being injected in the lower part, or you can say the beneath the ground surface, and thereby filling up the voids that were generated due to the liquefaction effect. These voids are thereby being compacted, and then this can be used for any type of construction. So these are the methods for reducing liquefaction. So next we'll be seeing further more special topics in the next session. Thank you.